Hey guys, Anthony here. It's Sunday, April 28th, 2019. In reading Selco's book here, The Dark Secrets of SHTF Survival by Selco Begovic, I'm over halfway done with the book. And so during my course of reading this, I'd like for us to review some of the chapters. And one of the chapters that I thought was important to look at was this one on gun confiscation. And it's basically titled Gun Confiscation, Here's How It Might Actually Go Down. And so I'm going to read a lot of what Selco wrote here, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And so I'd pay close attention to it because it's definitely a scenario that I think is playing out here in our country right now. So it prompted him, some questions arose on his blog that prompted him to write this story here. So he says, right now, this is not the rise of communism. I do not think this all news is about risk of rise of communism in the U.S. And also, I do think that you still live in a land with a lot of great rights and liberties, which is very cool. What is not cool is the fact that you are moving in the direction slowly shrinking of those rights, but is still very far away from a communistic evil empire. So I don't see any sense in having big headlines about Nazis and such other than scaring people for whatever reason. I see here something which is much more dangerous than the fear of communism. It is how people react to news or new laws about any weapon limitation. It's how they talk about what the majority of them are planning to do. Government at its core has the urge to control people in whatever way they can. If you are more armed, that means you are less controllable. But if you are acting in a way that you are screaming from the rooftops how you will defend your right to have whatever weapon contrary to the newest law, and how you'll be proud to own it and show it off, you eventually are not doing yourself any favors. Do you really think that when the time comes that the government will send two pale clerks to search your home looking for whatever weapon? Here's how the confiscation might actually go down. This is one possible scenario. First, you'll be labeled as a terrorist, some weird guy who wants to overthrow the government. Maybe your photo will be posted somewhere stating that you are very sick and that you pose a danger to society. If you are a member of some group, let's say a prepper group, you will all be labeled as terrorists first. Through the media, you can be portrayed as a domestic terrorist cell to the point that your next door neighbor will help the police try to get you. Do not underestimate the power of the government machine. You may truly be a fighter for constitutional rights and a real patriot, but in 3 days, you can become a crazy terrorist that citizens will actually hunt down and shoot like a mad dog. The point here is there is no point of publicly yelling about what you own and what you have rights to own. Of course, you need to own a weapon you think it makes sense to own. But why does everyone else need to know that, including government and government services? The Second Amendment is very cool and I like it very much, but here is the ugly truth. It works only if the government wants it to work. One day when the government does not want it to work anymore, it will be out of order, illegal, or even terrorist to practice it. Sorry, it's not your inalienable right. The government lets you think it's your inalienable right. Actually, you do not need to protect that right, you need to defend it. But again, not in a way that you're going to portray yourself as a terrorist. I mean, I will own what I want to own, and only I am going to know that until the day when I need it very badly, he says. Owning weapons. There used to be a law about weapons here, he's talking about in his country, where I lived before the war. And yes, you could own a weapon, but it was such a hard law that actually not too many people owned legal weapons. And right when SHTF, first thing that happened was the confiscation of legal weapons based on lists of who owned legal weapons. Now, what people could do then was to say, this is my legal weapon. I have a right to own it by law. And those who did that usually got shot. There were 20 heavily armed guys at your door asking nicely for your weapon to be turned over to them in the name of the law as an effort of the government that wanted to calm down the chaotic situation. Sometimes if you said no, those guys would simply destroy the whole house with RPGs and bombs. And guess what that meant? Folks who own legal weapons lost them even before the big SHTF. And a lot of guys who own them in an illegal way, hidden somewhere, still own them when SHTF happened. Illegal and legal have different meanings in different times and based on who says those words, so think about it. I'm not saying that it will go like that there where you are. What I do say is that you need to think a bit outside the box when it comes to owning things. For many years I found it ridiculous not to have an illegal or not traceable weapon stored somewhere safe for bad times. When SHTF and when and if guys show up on my doorstep to confiscate my weapon, what will I do? I will give them the weapon that they know about. What else should I do? Practice my rights? Nope. I have more of that stuff. It's not worth it to fight over the one they know about. What could be coming for the future? Again, I do not really see the government taking away all rights of owning a weapon as possibility there. He's talking about here in America. The tradition of firearms is simply way too big, and also the number of weapons is too big, too. What is possible is rapid shrinking of that right through some big event in an effort of getting things back to normal. When something big happens and there is a big fear and terror, people are ready to give away a lot of rights and liberties in exchange for the feeling of safety and security. This is wrong, of course, but it is how things work. So actually, you never know. Anything is possible. One bad side of having rights and freedoms for a long time in owning weapons is that thinking it's always going to be like that, or thinking that it must be like that. The good side of not having good gun rights is having a tradition of having always hidden somewhere an illegal weapon, always. And only you know about it and maybe your family. There is no need to brag about that anywhere else. So that's the scenario that he talks about on gun confiscation. And I highly agree with what he says here. It only takes one or two big events. People are willing to give up their rights and liberties, and they'll slowly erode at our gun rights. And you see that happening now with the mostly Democrats, but also some Republicans that want to take away our gun rights. And of course, guys, in the beginning, when I just read, when the government wants to control you, it's harder to control people that are armed. You have to be unarmed for them to control you. So take this in stride. Think about it. Think about what he says here. It's a possible scenario, and you see it right now with red flag laws around the country where people are labeled one way or singled out, or somebody says something about them, and then the media will demonize them, arrest them, take away their gun rights, and their stuff is gone. And that's how, think of that on a big expanded level where maybe even neighbors, friends, family, or whoever, acquaintances, co-workers are paid to rat people out or given food to rat people out. And there's lots of ways governments can do things in a dangerous situation in a time when they want to take gun rights away. So thinking that we're always going to have the Second Amendment is a fallacy. I don't believe that's the case. I believe truly that one day we will not have any gun rights here in this country. Actually, we will not have any constitutional rights in this country any longer. One day, I believe. So think about that as you prepare your preps, as you look on political scene, what's going on. It seems that the better Trump does and the more he delivers on his promises, the worse it gets, the worse things get, and the worse things are heating up. So think about that as the 2020 election approaches, because it's going to be very important, because we know that the number one thing on the lists of these people. Many of these people are the disarming of America, and that's a way that it's something that just has to be done in order for them to control the populace. Okay, so thanks for watching. Let me know your questions, comments, what you have to say about what Selco wrote here. It's very insightful, and I think it's even starting to play out in this country as we move along in 2019. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay ready. Keep prepping. Anthony signing off.